For 5 years now, we've heard what Lue Elizondo has to say about UAP. In fact, I think it was only days after the December 16th, 2017 New York Times article came out, he was interviewed by some outlet from the United Kingdom. And he said explicitly during that conversation with the host that him, as well as all of his colleagues from ATIP, concluded that some UAP do not originate from adversarial technology nor technology within the possession of the United States government. This has been the rhetoric of Lue Elizondo from when he was on stage during the To the Stars Academy press conference on October 11th, 2017.
It was in this position I learned that the phenomena is indeed real.
All the way till present day. He has maintained this. He's said it on CNN. He said it on, I think, MSNBC. He said it on a billion podcasts. He said it on publications. He has not changed his perspective. And he bases this rhetoric on the evidence that he was allowed to see while working at ATIP. And he was the director for an expansive time while working at ATIP. But it's not just Lue Elizondo who has maintained the rhetoric that we are not alone. And there are UAP in our atmosphere that were not constructed by human hands. He doesn't usually word it that way, but he words it close enough so that is the takeaway. He's explicit. But it's not even just Lue Elizondo who has stated this. All of the witnesses that have come forward, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm trying to be as objective here as I can. Literally all of the witnesses from the Nimitz, from the encounters off the eastern seaboard, that F-18 pilot Ryan Graves, Danny Acoyne, and others that have not come forward, various squadrons. But those that have come forward from those encounters, have all said that we're dealing with technology of unknown origin that exceeds known technology. What about some of the Nimitz witnesses? Commander David Fravor, Gary Voorhees, who was the head of the Spy One radar, I think it was on the Princeton. Chief radar operator Kevin Day, aviator Alex Dietrich, P.J. Hughes, who was responsible for the radar bricks coming off the E-2 Hawkeye eye in the sky reconnaissance plane, and Chad Underwood, who actually was the weapon systems operator that captured video footage of the Tic Tac after Commander David Fravor landed on the aircraft carrier. And other witnesses that I'm not naming, but they all have one thing in common from the Nimitz UFO event series, and that is either they're adamant that we're dealing with something that is not originating from humankind, or at the very minimum, this is unknown technology exceeding all known technology. There has not been one exception to that from any of the witnesses that have come forward from the Nimitz. As far as I know, you're welcome to correct me if I'm wrong about that. So, to summarize very quickly, not only has the former director of ATIP, Lue Elizondo, been explicit about the nature of this technology as opposed to murky, but so have the direct witnesses that have either seen these craft with their eyes and or detected them through sensor systems. All have been explicit of the nature of UAP, and it doesn't end there. Many members of the United States Congress have also been explicit in their analysis that some of the UAP that have been encountered by our military does not originate from humankind.
I cannot imagine if we have, if there is a foreign government that had these kinds of capabilities, I think we would see other indications of advanced technology. I can't imagine that what has been described or shown in some of the videos belongs to any government that I'm aware of.
You're a national security hawk. How concerned are you about these objects, and where do you think they come from?
Well, I don't believe they're coming from foreign adversaries. If they were, why, that would suggest that they have a technology which is in a whole different sphere than anything we understand. And frankly, China and Russia just aren't there. And either are we, by the way. So I'm not worried about it from a national security standpoint.
So that was just a small sampling of members of Congress that have been explicit regarding their analysis of what we're actually dealing with in regards to UAP capabilities. And that was from Senator Martin Heinrich of New Mexico and Senator Mitt Romney of Utah. Now, on December 16th, 2022, the Department of Defense held a media roundtable with Undersecretary of Defense INS Ronald Moultrie and Sean Kirkpatrick, who is the head of ARROW, All Domain Resolution Office, the UFO office in the Pentagon, and he is the head of ARROW in the same sense that Lue Elizondo was the head of ATIP, which of course begs the question: why is the rhetoric of Lue Elizondo so ultra crystal clear in regards to what we're dealing with, in regards to UAP? Why is the rhetoric of many of our members of Congress so ultra crystal clear in regards to what we're dealing with in regards to UAP? And why is the rhetoric so ultra crystal clear from the people that have actually engaged or seen with their own eyes or their sensor systems in regards to what we're dealing with in regards to UAP? Now contrast everybody I cited and their clarity on the nature of UAP, the amount of detail they provide on the nature of UAP, to what the current head of ARROW's details and clarity have been on the nature of UAP. That is Sean Kirkpatrick. In my humble opinion, it does not make the government look honest, forthright, or good when we have members of Congress being clear about the nature of UAP, when we have the ex-head of the Pentagon UFO program being clear about UAP, and when we have members of our military who actually seen these things, whether through their eyes or sensor systems, being clear about UAP, but the current head of ARROW, All Domain Anomalous Resolution Office, is just giving us murky answers to the nature of UAP. That's not a good look. It just isn't. And as I understand, we have hearings coming up in April, and we're going to have multiple hearings within the year of 2023. What happens when witnesses that potentially are testifying under oath give great clarity on the nature of UAP and what they're capable of versus what adversaries are capable of? And yet the United States government's official stance is still, we don't know, we need to do more research, we need to get to the bottom of that. I don't know, man. That comes off as obfuscation, lies, and disingenuousness. We've been at this for 70 plus years. The end game has to finally arrive, does it not? From that earlier media roundtable that I mentioned to you, here's a quote from Ronald Moultrie. As I said to congressional leaders in May, we are fully committed to the principles of openness and accountability to the American people. We are committed to sharing as much detail with the public as we can. So I just want to say this to Mr. Kirkpatrick and Mr. Moultrie with all due deference and respect. And I think you already know the answer to this, but I'm going to say it anyways. If you're wondering why people like me and an enormous amount of U.S. citizens don't believe you, don't trust you, in terms of your representing the Pentagon, shall we say, because we don't know exactly what you know, and I'm not going to assume to know what you know. But I will assume that the Pentagon knows a hell of a lot more than they're leading on in terms of UAP capabilities and the forensic proof they have to establish that reality. But if you're wondering why people are getting frustrated, it's not complicated. It's actually quite simple. And we can just break it down to the UFO historical record. FOIA documents, military witnesses coming forward over the decades, mass sightings, whether they're school landings or less dramatic mass sightings such as the Phoenix Lights and so forth. This has been happening for decades, and it's just common sense that the United States Air Force would be interested in this. It's just common sense. All you have to do is watch a documentary like James Fox's The Phenomenon, and it lays it all out there, right? He's not making it up. This is not hysteria. That documentary is based upon experiences of human beings that are highly credible observers and what they've relayed, including people dressed in suits harassing people and trying to intimidate them not to report their sightings. It's threaded throughout UFO history. It's not intelligent, objective, or rational to assume that's all garbage. On the contrary, I would argue it's intelligent, rational, objective to give credence to those reports. Even if they're not smoking gun of this whole reality, there's nothing truly responsible about just saying, you know what, it's all garbage. That's not responsible. And in fact, it is because of all of this historical record that we are here where we are. It's because of all of this historical record that the United States Congress doesn't believe you guys and perceive that they've been lied to about UAP, because it's become so comical and ridiculous at this point. It's like trying to tell the populace that the sky is yellow. No, I'm looking at the sky right now. I'm telling you it's blue. Don't tell me it's yellow. And it's not a perfect example because I've never seen a UAP, but there are tons of people who have. And so when you, the representatives of the U.S. government, are telling us that you're just starting to look into this and you're not quite sure, and you have that butting up against the reality that thousands of credible witnesses have seen these things, including people like Commander David Fravor, it's just ridiculous. It causes irritation. It causes anger. Nobody wants to be lied to. It's disrespectful. Speaking of the Phenomenon movie, here is Lue Elizondo, who was the head of ATIP, similar to how Sean Kirkpatrick is the head of Arrow. And this is what he had to say about the movie Phenomenon, directed by James Fox. And I quote from October 4th, 2020, "It's verified and it's real. I know this because while at the Pentagon, we had the files. Yes, many of you already know some of the information, but not all of it. Literally thousands of files have yet to be released that only bolster this production." Now, there was a part of the Phenomenon movie by James Fox that was rather intriguing, and I don't think it got a sufficient amount of discussion. Jacques Vallée was talking about, or the narrator was talking about, how Jacques Vallée was colleagues with J. Allen Hynek, and J. Allen Hynek had all these reports from Project Blue Book, piles and piles of them, and gave the responsibility to Jacques Vallée to look through them and I think catalog them. And during that process, Jacques Vallée made a chance discovery of a letter so secret that he had to appeal to the chief counsel of the Senate Defense Appropriation Committee to get it unclassified, at least according to the documentary. And here's a quote from that documentary by Jacques Vallée. Quote, "That document changed my life. It taught me that the subject had been taken much more seriously than anybody thought. The document revealed an ultra-secret, highly funded scientific investigation working parallel to Blue Book, unknown to all but a select few. The letter was signed by H.C. Cross, Director of Exotic Metallurgy at Battelle National Laboratories. And for some reason I have in my mind that it was called Project Stork, but I'm not sure. I wonder if Luis Elizondo saw files at the Pentagon going into that parallel effort with Project Blue Book that was classified and kept secret from the American public. If such an effort existed, and even if it didn't, but other efforts have existed to investigate UAP, I know that Jeremy Corbell has gone on record saying something to the effect that every branch of the U.S. military has a UFO investigation program. And he didn't, I don't think, go into the details, but my impression is that these are all very old programs. So the question is, how many legacy programs are there, and what have you learned? Because if you've learned quite a bit, no one wants to waste hardworking American taxpayers' dollars on reinventing the wheel. Nobody in their right mind, unless you just don't care about American hardworking taxpayer dollars. But if you do care about that, then I have news for the DOD. I have news for the United States Congress. I have news for the American government. I have news for the American citizen. We cannot stand for the proposition that AARO is going to go online, and it has, but it's going to start really ramping up, and they're going to be pursuing investigation of UAP when all the while there are legacy UFO programs that have been funded billions of dollars that are decades long old and have so many answers to this enigma already. That doesn't wash. That is not consistent with our democracy, and we will not stand for it if that is indeed the case. Because we got people like Luis Elizondo and Chris Mellon. We got people like them, and Kirsten Gillibrand, and Marco Rubio, and Tim Burchett, and my fellow advocacy friends. We are not going to stand for that. That's wrong, and it's not patriotic, and it's not the American way. Please do not forget to subscribe. And if you'd like to support this channel, you can check out my merch shop where I sell t-shirts. You can become a patron. You can become a YouTube member. You can give me a one-time donation. All those potentialities are in the description below. Or you just slap a like on this bad boy and I'll appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Special thanks to all patrons, YouTube members, those that have bought merch, those that have given me a one-time donation. I couldn't do without you. Thank you so much. See you in the next episode.